Hey, welcome to Estevan TV. I'm at pushgapradio.com.
Pushgapradio.com. Bridging the gap between old school and new school radio. Pushgapradio.com. It's Dallas, baby.
Pushgapradio.com. Hamilton Park, Dallas, Fort Worth.
Pushgapradio.com in Dallas and Fort Worth. Welcome to another edition of Ghetto Prophets. I am your host, Shaka Ford One. Very interesting guy on TikTok was talking about cemeteries. Sounded odd, a little strange, so I thought that I would bring it to you. Now, before we delve into it, there's a difference between cemeteries and graveyards. A cemetery is a place where people are buried. They're not associated with a church, so they are often larger as they're able to spread out beyond land adjacent to a church. Both religious people and non-believers can be buried there. The word cemetery dates back to the late 14th century. Its roots can be traced back to the old French word cemetery, which is itself derived from the medieval Latin cemeterium. Its literal translation is a place to set aside for the burial of the dead. It can also be tied to the ancient Greek word kometerion, which was a sleeping place or a dormitory. Over the years, the terms sleep and death became blurred together and kind of synonymous. What is a graveyard? A graveyard, like a cemetery, is a place where people are buried after they die. Graveyards are affiliated with a church and are typically located on church grounds. They tend to be smaller due to land limitations and thus are often choosier. Only members of their religion, and sometimes only members of that specific church, can be buried in a graveyard. The etymology behind the word graveyard is somewhat straightforward. It is, after all, a yard filled with graves. It's interesting to note, though, that the word grave is derived from a Proto-Germanic word graben, which means to dig. So, came up with this deal. I found it very interesting in what this brother was talking about here. Now, I had talked with some people online, on social media, and a few responses were, I've lived my whole life just fine without you telling me this. The remains, bones mostly, are either removed from the grave and placed in an ossuary, or the grave dug deeper so that it can hold the bones at the bottom. This leasing concept started in the mid-1950s, they say. Today, a lot of people are opting for cremation. Someone else said it must be a up north thing, mostly in highly populated cities. In the South, graveyards from the 1800s are still maintained. My grandfather was buried in 1990 in Puerto Rico, and 2 years ago, family tried to visit the cemetery, and they informed us they could not find the grave. Say it's only some states that allow this, and typically many, many years after the burial, and typically if there hasn't been any activity or visits from the family. Now, they say not all plots are leased. Cemeteries will, however, reuse the graves for generations to come. It'll stay in the family. This should be one of those "what's a scam and you didn't know it was a scam" video. I think it should be that as well. Now, they say some places in the Caribbean, when the dead turns to dust, they call the family to come pick up the remains and resell the grave site. Now, Netflix just dropped The Future of Funerals. It was very eye-opening about the future of deaths and burials. Today some people are being turned into diamonds and all kinds of different things. But check this guy out. I'll be right back.
When was the last time you heard of a new cemetery opening up?
It's actually a really simple answer. Doesn't sound very ethical, but it's simple. Graves are leased. They're not purchased. When you purchase a grave for your loved one, you're leasing it for 80 to 100 years. It depends on the state, the city, the municipality. You are leasing that space for your loved one from 80 years up to 100 years. After that, chances are you're going to be gone, and everybody from your family is going to be gone, and there'll be no one to show up and say, "Hey, what happened to grandma's grave?" Because eventually that space gets reused. So I want you to think about a cemetery in terms of a grid: old section, new section. The oldest section in any cemetery in your area is going to eventually, very soon, start getting cleared out and prepared to be reused for another batch of people. And it goes around and around just like that.
So, what do you think? Do you want to be cremated when you go? Do you want a proper burial? Have you discussed it with your family? Things that should be looked into. In black families, most folk don't want to talk about that. Now, when it comes to space requirements, starting around the 7th century, churches had complete control over burials. This meant that most burials took place in the graveyards adjacent to the church. But as the population grew over time, graveyard space became limited. This is when cemeteries unaffiliated with churches came into being. What do you think? Drop it down in the comments. Let me know, what do you think about cemeteries, and are they digging out the bodies and just reusing it? Have you ever seen the grand opening of a new cemetery? We would like you to drop that in that as well. You can follow us on Facebook at Push Gap Radios. Remember this, the people who follow us aren't followers. Please like, comment, and subscribe. We thank you so very much, and we will see you on the next video. PushGapRadios.com. Dallas, baby. And we're out.
PushGapRadio.com. We finna take over this town like street sweepers.
That's gangsta.
Never average, never mediocre. We're online, on point, and on the money.
Shaka Ford won in the main event only on PushGapRadio.com.
PushGapRadio.com. It's Dallas, baby.
PushGapRadio.com. We want to be your official Dallas internet station.